At 95, Robert Wagner finally reveals the truth about Natalie Wood's death. I have been silent for almost half a century, but at 95, I can no longer stay quiet. I must speak for myself and for the world the truth about the death of Natalie Wood. You think we were just the golden couple of Hollywood in the 50s. You believe our love was beautiful, romantic, and perfect, just as the magazines claimed. You believe that the night on the yacht in 1981 was simply an accident. If it was truly an accident, then why have I heard her voice calling my name in my dreams for 44 years? Says Natalie Wood apparently slipped, hit her head. The coroner's office said today that actress Natalie Wood was intoxicated and angry after an argument between attempted to board this rubber dinghy. It was here that she... Why does my heart pound like it will break whenever the Catalina wind begins to blow? And why, after living nearly a century, can I still not forgive myself? They said I killed my wife. They said I pushed her into the sea. But if I am truly guilty, then why have I carried her wedding ring next to my heart for more than 40 years? Behind the lights, behind the glamorous wedding photos, lies a truth that has never been told. A night filled with jealousy, alcohol, waves, and one final look that never faded. A moment where being 1 second too late could have changed everything. Today, I will reveal the tragic truth that has never been made public. A truth where love became a curse, where guilt and truth became one. And before I leave this world, you will finally know what Hollywood has hidden for 44 years. The only question is, do you dare listen until the end? I still remember the first time I met her. A young girl with deep brown eyes that looked as if they held all the secrets of the world. She was only 18, I was 27, already in Hollywood long enough to know that love here was rarely real. But Natalie's gaze made me believe that maybe this time it was. And on July 20th, 1957, we appeared together for the first time in front of the cameras as a newlywed couple. She was 18, radiant in a white dress. I was 27, with the belief that love could conquer anything. We kissed for the cameras. The press called it a dream marriage. Some said it was just an act. But few knew that this act led to years of aching silence I would spend trying to convince myself not to forget. We divorced in December of 1962 in the noise of rumors and flashing cameras. But in 1972, on June 12th, we remarried. Like two people pulled back together by a force they couldn't resist. Natalie said, "This time, I want us to be real." I believed her, and then I regretted it. In November 1981, she invited me and her co-star Christopher Walken aboard the Splendor to ease the tension. The trip began on November 25th from Catalina Harbor. 3 nights later, on the night of November 28th at around 8:45 in the evening, she left the cabin and walked out onto the deck. The last time I saw her, she said, "The wind is so strong tonight, Robert." I followed her. I called her name. I heard a scream echo back, but the ocean was silent. That night, Natalie Wood vanished. Only the wind, the waves, and a question without an answer remained. And now, 40 years later, I will tell everything. No more hiding, no more lies. So the world understands that truth is not what people choose to tell. It is what someone has had to endure in order to keep living. I still remember that chill of Saturday night, November 28th, 1981. The Catalina Sea lay calm, a mirror reflecting the pale silver moonlight. Our yacht, the Splendor, moored off Isthmus Cove, about half a mile from shore. On deck, there were only 4 of us. Me, Natalie, Christopher Walken, and Dennis Davern, the yacht captain. Around 7 in the evening, Natalie opened a bottle of wine. She laughed as though trying to dispel the tension that had been building for weeks. She wore a burgundy knit dress, her brown hair loose, her eyes shining under the yellow lights. I drank whiskey, silent. Inside me there was a tug, one half wanting to hold on, the other wanting to flee. We had promised we would try again. But when I looked at Christopher Walken sitting across from her, I saw a light in his eyes. The light I once had when Natalie looked only at me. I did not hate him. I hated the truth. That time had taken from me everything, even the way she looked at me. Around 9 they began talking about movies, futures, the projects Natalie hoped to do after Brainstorm. I did not interrupt. I just sat there listening, feeling like an intruder in my own life. Walken said, "An artist cannot live in fear of being forgotten. Natalie, you should continue acting. Don't stop." I heard her respond softly, like a wind. "I am tired, Chris. I just want to be a wife, a mother, to be at peace." And I saw their eyes meet, just briefly, but enough for me to know what I feared was beginning. I put my glass down, voice heavy. "She is my wife, Chris, and if she is tired, she has the right to rest. You need not advise her." The air froze. Natalie looked at me, her eyes part pity, part disappointment. "Robert, here you go again. Not everyone who speaks with me is trying to take me away from you." I answered, I only know that those who speak much with you often end up making you cry." Christopher stood, went out to the deck. Natalie sighed, her voice low and weary. "I am tired of apologizing for things I did not do." I stayed silent. Something was breaking. Not glasses clinking, but something deeper. Trust. Around 10:30, Natalie went up on deck. I remained seated with my empty drink. The waves lapped gently against the hull. The wind whistled through the masts. The room felt cold. I heard her voice drift through the air, vague. "I just need peace. Robert, don't follow me." But I followed anyway. I came out to the deck and saw her standing near the railing, back turned, her arms wrapped around her robe. "What are you doing out here?" "The wind is strong," I said. "I'm okay. I just want calm." I approached, trying to say something kind, but my words came out like a blade. "Calm out here with walkin'?" She turned, eyes glistening. "You always think others want to take me from you, but Robert, no one can do that. You do it to yourself." I took another step, voice rising. "And what about the way you looked at him, Natalie?" "That was a friend's look, Robert, and your look, all anger." The wind howled, the masts creaked. Dennis later said he heard an argument from below decks, but did not dare come up. And me, I stood close to Natalie, just a few steps away. I remember saying something I would regret for the rest of my life. "If you leave me again, don't expect me to save you." Natalie looked at me. That gaze, the same eyes that once made Hollywood fall in love, now full of disappointment. "Perhaps you never loved me, Robert. You just loved owning me." I moved forward, but she turned away. She pulled her robe tighter, leaned toward the rope of the anchor, checking it. Then, in a split second, a sound like something falling into the water. Plop! I turned sharply, cried out, "Natalie!" No answer. I looked around, the moonlight flickering. I shouted louder, "Natalie, where are you?" I ran to the rail and leaned over. Saw only waves, no sound, no bubbles, only the smell of wine and salt. I called for Dennis. We searched the deck. Christopher came up from below, face ghostly. "What is happening?" "Natalie is missing," I shouted. We switched on floodlights. The beams swept across the water. Blank, useless. I gripped the railing, my heart pounding. Dennis said she may have used the rubber dinghy to go somewhere. I shook my head. No, she hated the water. Natalie was always afraid of the sea. At about 11:05, we called the Coast Guard. Catalina that night was thick with fog. Signals were weak. I stood for more than an hour staring out to sea. The wind strengthened. The temperature plunged to 10 degrees centigrade, and I felt nothing but cold and emptiness. By morning on November 29, 1981, Natalie's body was found about a mile from the yacht near Blue Cavern Point. She was still wearing her nightgown and red coat, holding on to a small rubber life raft with her hand. I stood on the shore and watched them pull her out. Her face was peaceful to a terrifying degree, as if the sea had forgiven her, only it would not forgive me. The police declared drowned, accident, no signs of struggle, no serious wounds. But I know some truths require no proof. Some things exist only in the heart of one who knows they erred. In the years that followed, I lived between two worlds. One where people applauded me on screen, the other where I heard Natalie's voice calling me in the night. A call drowned by waves. Every night I dream of that yacht. The water still, the moon, her silhouette drifting away. I run after her, but my legs feel like they are anchored to the depths. I wake, soaked in sweat, heart racing. In 2011, Los Angeles police reopened the case. I was 81. They asked me hundreds of questions. Were you jealous? Did you push her? I only answered I loved her and that love killed me a little every day. I did not push Natalie, but I also did not hold her back. And in this life, sometimes silence is its own crime. Now in 2025, I am 95. I look out at the sea from my house in Beverly Hills, and sometimes I think perhaps I died that night too. Only my body remained to atone. I tell this story not to justify myself, but to find peace. Because Natalie deserved, however late, to know that I never stopped loving her. And the world may believe or not. It no longer matters. What matters is that when I close my eyes, I can tell myself on November 28, 1981, I lost her forever. And from that night onward, I have lived as a man condemned. They say time heals all wounds, but they don't know there are wounds that never close, only become part of the body, simmering in pain with every breath. For me, since November 29, 1981, time ceased to be a cure and became a prison. In the days after Natalie's loss, I did not know whether I was living or merely existing. The house on Coldwater Canyon overflowed with funeral wreaths, condolence letters, reporters, and prying eyes. They did not come for grief. They came to know what I had done. On December 2, 1981, the Los Angeles police came to question me. They asked a litany of questions. Did you argue with your wife that night? Did anyone see Natalie leave the deck? Why did you not call for help sooner? I answered each question coldly, mechanically, as though reading the script of my own life. I said, we had disagreements, but nothing violent. But I knew no one believed me. In their eyes, I was the last man beside her, and that was enough to make me the villain. The media exploded. On December 4th, 1981, the Los Angeles Times splashed, Robert Wagner and Christopher Walken, the secret night of a silent death. They printed pictures of me, of Natalie, of the yacht Splendor. They reconstructed every detail, imagined every line, painted frightening scenarios. Jealousy, argument, struggle, falling into the sea. No one asked me if perhaps I was surviving inside my own pain. I remember the night the police allowed me to see Natalie's body one last time at Avalon Harbor Hospital morgue. She lay there, her face unnaturally calm, her skin cold. I touched her hand. It still smelled of salt and sea. I whispered, "I'm sorry, I should have held you." And the silence answered me like the Catalina waves echoing in the nights when sleep would not come. In 1982, the investigation's conclusion was published. Accidental drowning due to alcohol and carelessness. No one was prosecuted. People said the case was closed, but for me, it had only begun. After Natalie's death, Hollywood looked at me like a shadow. I still appeared on television, still acted, still smiled on red carpets, but behind every smile was a hollow. In 1983, I accepted a role in Heart to Heart Returns, but each time the camera rolled, I saw Natalie's eyes in the lens. I would turn away. Sometimes I walked off set, sat in my car for hours just to breathe. Once a director asked, "Robert, are you okay?" I answered, "Yes, I just forget whether I'm acting or living." I began to drink more whiskey, wine, sleeping pills, anything to drown out Natalie's voice calling in the night. Every night I heard the plop, the sound of her body meeting the water. It would not leave me, would not let me go, even when I closed my eyes. By 1986, Walken avoided me. He never spoke of it again, perhaps out of fear or guilt. We both lived in silence. We met for the last time at an event at the Beverly Hilton in 1992. He nodded to me, then turned away. No words, but in that moment, I knew we were both prisoners of that night. In 1995, when I was 65, a young Vanity Fair reporter came to me. She asked, "Mr. Wagner, people still believe Natalie was murdered. Would you like to respond?" I smiled dryly. "If I say I didn't kill her, will you believe me?" She was silent. I understood. Belief died with Natalie. In 2000, I published my memoir, Pieces of My Heart. I mentioned Natalie lightly, as though touching an old wound. I wrote, "I cannot tell it all, not because I am guilty, but because telling would kill me again." The book sold well, but people asked only one question. Why didn't you ever fully explain what happened that night? I would not answer, not because I didn't know, but because I feared that even the smallest truth could destroy her memory. Then came 2011, 30 years had passed. I thought everything had slept in peace. But on November 18th, 2011, the Los Angeles police reopened the case. They said there was new evidence. A witness, Dennis DeVerne, the yachtsman that night, claimed that Mr. Wagner had a loud argument with Natalie just before she vanished. I was at home when the news broke on television. The first words I heard, Robert Wagner, prime suspect in the death of Natalie Wood. I remember that night. I sat alone, lights off. Los Angeles glowed beyond the windows. I uncorked an old bottle of whiskey and drank it straight. 30 years of silence, and one statement was enough to make the world judge me again. I still recall November 21st, 2011, when the police summoned me for questioning. I was 81, hair silver, hands trembling, yet my heart raced as fast as it did in 1981. They asked me everything again. Were you jealous of Walken? Did Natalie want to leave you? Did you hear her call for help? I remained silent. I could not lie, but speaking the truth seemed useless. I just breathed and said, "Have you ever loved someone so much you lost them? If you have, you would understand me." The press erupted. CNN, People, The Guardian, all ran headlines. The death of Natalie Wood, Robert Wagner suspected again. They called me the last living suspect. I became the symbol of what America loves most, a tragedy without closure. In 2012, standing on my porch, I looked out at the sea and thought, perhaps Natalie did not want me to live like this. But I did not know how to live any other way. I had 3 daughters, Natasha, Courtney, and Katie, yet none ever spoke of their mother in front of me. They watched me with love tangled with fear. On my birthday in 2013, Natasha, Natalie's child, came to hug me. She whispered, "I will not ask you whether you killed Mom. I just hope you do not die with that secret." I wept. After 32 years, she was the only one brave enough to say that to me. It was that night I began to write everything. Not for the public, not for the press, but for myself. I wrote of the summer of 1956 when Natalie and I first walked in Malibu. The year 1961 when she cried for not being nominated for Splendor in the Grass. The year 1972 when we remarried and she said, "Robert, this time don't hurt me." And I wrote until the night of November 28, 1981. I did not write that I pushed her. I did not. But I also did not write that I saved her. Because the truth is, I did nothing. And sometimes doing nothing is the greatest crime of all. When I reached that part, my hand trembled. I heard the echo of water, the waves against Splendor's hull. I looked up at Natalie's photo on my desk. She smiled, eyes familiar, sweet, distant. I said to her, "You know, I have never feared death. I feared living each day without you." In 2018, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office officially designated me a person of interest in Natalie Wood's case. I was 88. No roles left, no interviews. They came to my house, asked more questions. I sat in silence. "Mr. Wagner, do you have anything to say?" I replied, "I would say it, but you would not understand." They left. The door closed. I sat in darkness and realized sometimes the worst punishment is not imprisonment. It is living long enough to confront yourself. I have lived that way. From 1982 to 2011, 30 years, I performed dozens of roles, received hundreds of praises, yet never slept fully. Every time I heard the sound of water, I jolted awake. Every time I saw a red dress, I scanned the room. Every time someone called Natalie, my heart clenched as if her name still had the power to call me back there. Now in 2025, I sit and write these words. 14 years since the last time the police questioned me. 43 years since the night she fell into the sea. I am old, my skin wrinkled, my voice raspy, my hands trembling. Yet obsession remains as young as ever. People ask, "Why tell it now?" I answer, "Because I do not want to die in silence." Silence tore me alive like seawater seeping into the heart. I tell this not to be forgiven, but so someone, even just one person, can understand. Truth is not always clarity. Sometimes it is darkness, something you must live with for the rest of your life. And if anyone asks me whether I remember November 28, 1981, I will say I do not. Remember, I still live in it. This year I am 95. Each morning when the first sunlight streams through the windows of my Beverly Hills villa, I still wake at 6:03, a habit from my younger days. But instead of going to a film set now, I only step onto the patio, look at the orange trees and listen to sparrows sing. I live alone in a house that is far too large for one person, too quiet for a soul that has never known true peace. My total assets are about $20 million, including this mansion, a few parcels of land in Palm Springs, and royalties from old films. People still pay for Heart to Heart. It Takes a Thief, The Towering Inferno, the works that once made me an icon of an era. Occasionally, I receive letters from fans, mostly older women, who watched me on television in the 70s. They write, "Robert, you are still the most elegant man in Hollywood." I smile, fold the letter, but inside only one question echoes. If they knew the real me, would they still think that? My body now is a broken symphony. Weak heart, shaky wrist joints, memory worn away in patches. I suffer from mild neurodegeneration, sometimes unable to remember who I was speaking to or whether I have eaten breakfast. The doctor comes weekly, checks my blood pressure, examines my heart, and always asks the same question. "Are you feeling tired?" I answer, "Not tired, just hollow." I have lived long enough to watch friends pass away one by one. Kirk Douglas died in 2020, Sidney Poitier in 2022. I remain the last ember of a fire once brilliant. Once a young journalist visited me and said, "You are the last of the golden age of Hollywood." I laughed. If that is an honor, it is a lonely one. Because to be called the last, you must stand amid a cemetery of memories. In my home still hangs our 1957 wedding photo, when Natalie and I held hands in front of the Beverly Hills church. She was 18, I was 27. Our eyes at that moment shone so brightly I believed love might be immortal. Now the photograph has yellowed. The wooden frame cracked. I place it in the living room next to a photo of my daughter Natasha, the only child who still visits regularly. Natasha is 54 now, working in film, a calm and strong woman. She often calls on weekends. "Dad, are you okay? I'll come Sunday." I always reply, "Don't worry about me. You have your own life." But truly, I wait for the sound of a car in the drive, for her footsteps in the hall. Whenever Natasha arrives, she makes vegetable soup, tidies the rooms, opens the windows so the breeze can come in. She never speaks of Natalie, not because she doesn't want to, but because she knows I couldn't bear it. Only once last year she said, "Dad, I reread Mom's journals." She wrote, Robert always feared losing what he loved most. Maybe that is why you never escaped that fear." I looked at her, choked. "Yes, and it was that fear that made me lose the mother of your children. I have 2 other children, Courtney and Katie, with my later wife, Jill Saint." John. Jill and I married in 1990 and have now been together for more than 30 years. She is still beautiful, still smiling, and still calls me RJ, the nickname only Natalie ever used. Jill has always stood by me, but I know she senses something I never dare say. A part of you will always remain in Catalina. She does not feel jealous. She understands. Once when I was hospitalized for heart complications in 2022, she held my hand and said, "If one day you meet her again, tell her I loved you with every remaining part." I wept like a child. I realized that in my lifetime, 2 women have loved me, and both loved a man who could never love anyone completely. I no longer appear in public. Reporters still write about me, but no longer for my films, rather for the Natalie Wood case. They call me Hollywood's reclusive man. They photograph me in a wheelchair, wearing a robe, dark glasses, wheeling myself through the garden. I see that photo in People magazine and smile bitterly. That is the world's final image of me, a criminal never tried. I bear no resentment. I have lived in the light long enough to know that when the lights go out, darkness spares no one. I spend most of my time writing my memoir, the second one after Pieces of My Heart. I titled it The Silence After the Waves. I do not write it for readers, I write it for myself. I recount the years I made films, about Frank Sinatra, Elizabeth Taylor, about the last party in Baja in 1979 where Natalie shone amid the crowd. And I write also of the years afterward, the years when no one called, no one invited me to parties, no roles remained. I lived in oblivion, the gift Hollywood gives to every soul that once shone. Yet strangely, I have no regrets. I had everything, fame, fortune, love, and I lost everything too. In the end, only one thing remained that I understood, the meaning of silence. I remember the last time I went to Catalina. It was May 2023, and I asked Natasha to take me. We stood on the shore, wind blowing hard, the salt air evoking the past. I pointed at the deep green water and said, "That place is where your father lost a lifetime." Natasha held my hand, tears in her eyes. "No, Dad, you only lost Mom. But life, you are still living it, so you can tell it." Her words silenced me. I realized that for all those years I existed just to wait to speak out, just so one person would understand that my silence was not a crime, but a prayer. Sometimes old friends drop by or send cards. Gregory Peck once wrote to me in 1999, "No one escapes the past, Robert, but don't let the past decide how you die." I have kept that card to this day, tucked in the bedside drawer. I read it every night before falling asleep. My sleep is short, usually lasting only 2 hours. I wake in the middle of the night, walk the hallways, look at the photographs lining the walls. Natalie and me in All the Fine Young Cannibals, 1960. Her head resting on my shoulder, her gaze gentle. Then me in Heart to Heart, laughing with Jill on the set. Those faces, those memories intermingle, blurring my sense of present and past. Some nights I think I hear the sound of water dripping. I follow that sound and it turns out to be a leaking air conditioner. Yet in my heart, I still tell myself she might be out there. Doctors say I have only a few years left. I am not afraid. I have made my preparations. I have finished my will, given it to Natasha and Jill. I divided all of my assets. The Beverly Hills mansion goes to Jill, who has cared for me these last 3 decades. The remainder, including film royalties and bank accounts, divided equally among my 3 children. A small sum, $500,000 for the Natalie Wood Memorial Fund to help older actresses who have lost work, because I know how cruel it feels to be forgotten. I signed, trembling yet resolute. Then I wrote a final line, small but meant to be seen. I do not wish to be remembered for scandal. I wish to be remembered for having loved truly. In February 2025, I quietly celebrated my 95th birthday. Jill lit candles. Natasha came in person. Courtney and Katie joined by Zoom. We laughed, sang happy birthday, and I felt strangely out of place amid the joy. Because deep inside, I know each birthday now is no longer a celebration, but a gentle farewell. After dinner, Natasha asked, "Dad, if you could go back and relive one day of your life, which would you choose?" I did not hesitate. November 27, 1981, the day before your mother died. She asked, "To do what?" I smiled. To speak less and hold her longer. Now, as I sit writing these final lines, the sky outside Los Angeles turns amber. The light of day spills through the curtains, just like the light in that small cabin aboard Splendor years ago. 44 years have passed, yet I still hear the waves of Catalina beating in my heart. No more blame, no more fear, Only gratitude that I still breathe, still can tell. I know that when I leave, people will revisit that case. They will analyze, debate, doubt, judge, but I do not need to be exonerated. I only need forgiveness, not from the law, but from her own soul. If there is another life, I hope to meet Natalie again. Not on red carpets, not in lights, but on a quiet beach where there are no angry waves, no questions left. We will walk side by side, hand in hand, just as we did in 1957 when everything was still whole.